Welcome to selfdiscoverymedia.com, where we discover the communities that are making a difference in the lives of others. Our self-discovery is something we are all making on our life's journey. Here you will find the people that will be your guidance, that will be your inspiration, that will be there for you in support on your journey of life. Do enjoy. Our next show is... Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome back to another edition of Ignite Your Heart and Soul right here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy. My wonderful guest today is William Halal. Ooh, have we got some juiciness for you here today. Beyond the knowledge lies the triumph of the human spirit. Beyond the knowledge, I'm a knowingness person. So it's always about how the soul speaks to the heart and lifts the spirit up, and the mind will know what it needs to know when it needs to know it. So how do we tap into beyond the knowledge of what we know and tap into that human spirit? Well, he says the knowledge age of the past 2 decades is passing today as the digital revolution and artificial intelligence replace knowledge work. Hal's study of social evolution explains how this marks the passage to a new frontier beyond knowledge that is poorly understood. An age of consciousness is here, but more pandemics, climate changes, gross inequity, gridlock, and other threats from the crisis of maturity that is blocking the historical transformation. His book provides a wealth of evidence and leading examples of emerging global consciousness, now driving the world to grow up, resolve the global crisis, develop a sustainable world order, or perish. With foresight and hard work, we could see the triumph of the human spirit again. And so we can, if we decide to. It's all about a choice, isn't it? Awareness. A few years ago, I was given a wonderful saying from the universe. The universe is going to shake us up, to wake us up, for us to step up, to change it up, and to grow up. And I think we're very much still in the shaking it up period, where some people have escalated forward into changing it up and others are in resistance. But resistance is futile, right, William?
Well, it's going to be tough, no question about it, Sarah. It's not going to be easy. It's going to take decades. But I think we're in the early stages of a truly remarkable period in human civilization, yes.
I think if we look at it from that point of view, there's a divine canvas there, that's just ready for us to paint what is possible and not constantly dwell on what we don't have, or who's done who wrong, or who's right over wrong. If we actually allow that universe to guide us forward, we really will see that the solutions are all there in our technology, but in our presence. And that's something I think we need to be engaged with.
Well, that's wonderful to hear you say that. Many people have difficulty with this because they think it's too optimistic. They're depressed by the terrible news that's everywhere, and they have a right to be. It is terrible. It looks like the end of the world in many ways, but I don't think it is. I think it's just a difficult transition, very much like I like to compare it to the problem a teenager has becoming an adult.
Yes.
If you raise children, you know that they go through horrible periods of confusion. They don't know how they fit in. At some point, when the pain gets too severe, they grow up, they accept their responsibilities, they do the right thing. That's about where we are as a civilization, I would say. We've got to accept our responsibilities for this global mega crisis and do the right thing. And I think we could I think we can see the triumph of the human spirit again. I think it could be marvelous if we get our act together. That's right.
That's the $1 million question, isn't it? Getting our act together. It's we see so much resistance and protesting against any form of kind of evolution or moving forward. Anti-technology, anti-this, anti-that, and it's like is that we're given these wonderful innovations to help us propel forward. So that many of the kind of the mundane things can be done so that the human spirit can seek higher elevation. But why is it that we are so resistant to our own growth? Why do we have to hold on to something that we know that isn't working, that is so utterly dysfunctional?
Well, that's really where we should start, because the digital revolution is very much like the invention of the printing press
Mhm.
300 years ago. The printing press unleashed a flood of nonsense and turbulence and conflict that lasted for decades. There were wars. The Protestant Reformation came from all that. And we're struggling with the same thing now, this flood of knowledge and information that we can't manage. The best example of that is social media. Social
Mhm.
media has become a monster. It foments emotion, confusion, conflict, and that has to be tamed somehow. I have a piece we're publishing now called How to Tame the Social Media Monster. And I think that's the first thing we have to do. But the big challenge is we have to somehow make sense out of all of this, these different voices on the whole planet. We're reaching 10 billion people, and
Mm.
they're all different. They're all different, different cultures, different religions. The challenge is to somehow make sense out of all that in a way that uh, honors their differences,
Mhm.
the diversity, but somehow unites us against around some common broad principles. And that's what I consider global consciousness. I hear a lot about that. I think that's the next big thing.
Yes. I always say to it, this whatever skin we come in, or culture that we're born to, is the vehicle. But in the heart, the soul, and the spirit, every single one of us has it. And when we engage it, it doesn't matter what vehicle, what body we're in. And this mine is better than yours, mine is more superior than yours, you're an NEB because you're different, is extremely shallow and narrow thinking. Because when we choose to see each other from the inside out, see the heart, see the
Right.
spirit, see the consciousness, see the possibilities, see the connections,
Exactly.
and then we're actually going to realize we all want the same thing. We just might be approaching it differently or using a different language. But when we come together, which we have seen in the early days of the pandemic, how people came together, how people had time to reflect. And it's wonderful to see that human spirit step into that engagement. But why is it temporary? We know how wonderful it is. Why do we stop there? Why do we go, I like this, let's continue it?
Exactly. One of the principles of global consciousness, I think, should be something like embrace diversity as an asset.
Yes.
We have the mistaken opinion that when people are different, they're a threat. They're not.
Mm.
It's a
Mhm.
resource. A different person, a different culture has knowledge that we don't have. They have different ways of seeing things, different cultures. We can all benefit from that. So I think we're in for a period where we embrace diversity as a wonderful asset. It's like diversity in nature. Diversity in nature is essential for survival.
We have 4 seasons in most countries. Everything goes through a change. Everything has to die so something can be renewed. But
Yep.
we don't have to look at the human having to die to be reborn. We can look at our lives and go, what is working for us? Do I buy into that? Um, that Facebook agenda, or because everything is an algorithm. We even are an algorithm. So what you want to see grow, seed and water and nurture, and don't buy into that hysteria. Don't buy into the delusion, because somebody's profiting off that. They're profiting off you getting all riled up and stepping into fear and hate, right? So somewhere along the line, as we're pointing fingers at everyone else, there's three pointing back at us, going, well, what about your responsibility? What about your ownership? What about your participation? What are you going to do about it that isn't hate and fear-based?
Yes. Let me offer an idea for us to think about. One of the most remarkable steps in this direction is coming from big corporations.
Mm-hmm.
People have terrible resentment and fear of corporations. They just can't believe that anything good could come of this. But as a matter of fact, about 2 years ago, the Business Roundtable announced the elimination, the passing of what they call shareholder supremacy, the belief that profit was the only legitimate goal of business. And now they embrace all of the goals of all stakeholders, employees, customers, the public, and so forth. That is a remarkable change. It's
Yes.
historic.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have believed it would happen. It's just the beginning of this. But if we embrace this and carry it to its logical conclusion, it means the corporation, the most powerful institution in the world, could become a model of cooperation. That would be something. It would set the tone for society at large. It would be really historic. So it's amazing that it's coming from business. But I think it's serious. I think it's really makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, government follows the lead of corporations, right? Because the lobbyists, they pretty well own them. So if they're changing their tune, a couple of years ago, I did a wonderful series called Let's Get Synced. And it was about the emotional environmental climate change before you actually even go to climate change. And it was changing the way we look at things. So one gentleman with a company called Pure Necessity, it is people, planet before profit, not profit at the expense of people and planet. And it was delightful. They were mostly Europeans, some on the North American side, various parts of the world, but they had stepped into working with governments, working with corporations, working with changing that mindset that the more you serve the planet, which is producing resources, the more you invest in the people, the more loyalty and the more they wish to work for you, the more you've got people's back, clientele, the more that they're going to support you. So therefore, more profit. So that thinking is changing, where they're realizing where their profit is coming from.
And what you're saying really is that it all hinges upon consciousness.
Yes.
If we can alter the way we think, everything is possible.
Yeah.
That's the real challenge. We have to change our consciousness. Right now, or for the last hundreds of years, the dominant principles that have governed behavior, I think, are money, power, and self-interest, I would say, to put it simply. That is what is being challenged right now. And the pandemic has made it clear that that's not viable.
Right.
The present global order is not sustainable. And people understand this, I think, pretty much. So we need a different way of thinking, a different consciousness. And that's where, the book comes in. That's what it's all about. It's a different consciousness, and it's being driven by the digital revolution. I think it's social evolution is a powerful force.
Yeah.
It's bigger than any of us. It's beyond us. So I think if we hang in here and pay attention to what's happening and do the right thing, this could work out fairly soon. Because, I think we're going to see a moment of truth in the United States in about 2024, I think. That's the next.
I hope so.
The next presidential election. Trump is probably going to be the Republican candidate. Climate change will be more severe at that point. The pandemic will still be around. And so Americans are going to have to decide, do they want to go down that old path, or are they prepared to make a serious change? So I think we're going to see changes in the next few years. This is not something that's going to happen 20 years from now. It's happening right now.
Many of the people that I interview, and I've been doing this 9.5 years, and it's really interesting to see what's happening on the outside at how it pivots people in their line of work or in their way of thinking. And in this last 1.5 years, of course, it's been a great deal of, navigating through the pandemic. And so many people have said, like, I was in a corporate job and, never home, constantly on the road. And suddenly I can't go anywhere. And I set my priorities and changed completely, family, friends, my own health and self, and realized I could still be productive through Zoom without having to get on a plane every 5 minutes. And it also shook people up to a point where, they became kind of a little fearful. And then it was, well, take the deep breath, calm down. What can we do about this? And look at how we can be there for each other digitally, and how it can connect you around the world, how you can still be productive and expand your horizon consciously, businessly, relationshiply through the internet, through the digital. So again, we're not damning technology. It's just how the technology is used, even social media. If you feed the right algorithm, it can benefit you and benefit many people. If you buy into the hysteria, then you're going to get a tornado.
That's right. Well, it's fascinating the way the pandemic has been a terrible crisis, of course, but it's also produced remarkable gains. For instance, the great resignation, it's being called. The people have decided that after working at home just fine, they don't see any reason to go back to the old system.
Yes.
And so they're challenging their employers and they're forcing a different model. And it's going to be the model that I have been forecasting for years.
Mm-hmm.
You go into the office 2 or 3 days a week to meet with your colleagues and your clients and whoever, and you get that work done in 2 or 3 days. And the other 2 or 3 days you work at home just fine. So it's remarkable how this is happening.
Yes.
Nobody planned it. It just came out of the pandemic. So it's just a reminder of how these things surprise us. Change is surprising. It can come from anywhere.
Yeah. And the thing is, don't be afraid of change. You know, I mean, you change your clothes every day, your undies, you know, and it's, are you afraid to do that? And it's like, you know, I think, again, you know, you go back to the printing press, and then basically whoever was behind the printing press could dictate how society went. And now we're looking at it, you know, through social media, through that kind of marketing. And I think as consumers, we've got to be careful what we're buying. And I think there's a lot more due diligence that we need to take on and go, does this serve me? Does it serve my service? Do I want to be in a higher elevation of peace, love, and harmony? And do I want to shatter that with somebody's angst and anger because they're not willing to deal with it? And I think the more people raise up to that lovely vibration, the more we're going to see the others get drowned out, because we can't help them until they're willing to help themselves. But people are tired of the hate. They're tired of the rhetoric. They're tired of the fear. They're tired of the hysteria. You know, it's enough, folks. And they go, please, let's raise that consciousness. I just want some peace.
I hope you're right. You know, let's talk about some other trends that suggest that we're moving in the right direction. The Me Too movement, I think, was remarkable. That women around the world, not just the US, decided they didn't want to put up with sexual harassment any longer. Right. So that's changing. The Black Lives Matter movement, I think, is doing the same thing. People of color around the world have decided they're tired of being badly treated by the police and other people. The gay rights movement. I mean, you can see the changes bubbling up right now.
Yes.
It's easy to miss it if you're not looking, but it's all here. It's coming.
I don't think we can avoid it. You know, I mean, one of the beautiful things I think I loved about the pandemic is all your talk shows that had people in the studio, hair and makeup, 2 or 3 minutes, you know, surface talk, and off they went. And all of a sudden, everybody's having to do everything from home. And you've got people in their natural habitat, their own makeup and hair, you know, people doing it from their homes.
And their dogs and cats appear on
TV. I've got a dog on my lap right now.
That's right. Yeah.
And another one by my feet. And but what we got was some beautiful, open, honest conversation. Yeah. And people felt we've got time to go in depth. We've got time to put away the facade and the illusion and just be normal human beings with concerns and talking to one another, with one another, not at one another. And I think it opened up to a totally different way we want to receive information.
Yeah, I would caution, though. I think that there is enormous resistance to this for whatever reasons. Like maybe half of the population is angry at various things. I don't want to cast aspersions, but that's true. And I think we have to find a different way to deal with one another. Mm-hmm. For instance, I think we have to listen to one another in a way we never did before. Yeah. The Trump supporters, for instance, I don't mean to denigrate them, but they have legitimate points of view, I think. And we can't demonize that. Nope, we have to listen to those people. That is the place to start, to have an honest, open mind where you're not waiting for the person to finish their argument so you can butt in, but you really pay attention and you change your own thinking. Yes. That's the mark of really listening, when you change your own thinking. And that has to be done on a national level. In fact, I think if the media was clever about this, they would foster this on their programs have people from different persuasions just carefully listen to one another and try to find that middle ground. That's what we need to change attitudes, I think.
I think it would be wonderful if we could have this open forum conversation that wasn't at all political.
Yes.
Right? And just like, well, what really are you feeling? What really is your concern? What do you really want to see? Because many of the time they're not quite sure what they want. They just don't want what they're getting.
They're angry at something. You have to
Yes.
find out what it is.
Yes. And then,
Yes.
okay, how can we collectively
Right.
change this collectively, not do it for you, but
Right.
invite you to be a part of the equation into changing this? But I think as long as you've got politics in there, like politicians, and you're pitching one against the other, we're not going to get to the root of the
Oh.
cause.
No,
So,
the present attitude towards politics is terrible. You see politics as a war.
yes.
That's a terrible way to make
Yeah.
policy. You end up with the least common denominator when you're done, and it antagonizes everybody. I think there's an opening for a different kind of politics that is based upon cooperation.
And collaboration.
Yeah, creative politicians who
Yes.
can serve both sides in a
Yes.
creative way. They, I think, could lead the new brand of political action.
I like that.
Yeah,
I like that because basically they can go to both sides of the equation.
exactly.
Well, because when you look at an argument between people and you hear them and you go, but you realize you're both saying the same thing. You're just saying it from a different observation, from a different point of view. But if we could get down to what is the common denominator, what is the real question here? What are you really asking or wanting to say? And then you've got somebody that's completely neutral that can go back. I have a lawyer on this speaker who's a holistic lawyer. And he uses the holistic approach instead of like, you pay me this much, I'm going to win no matter what. And it's about treating somebody as a human being, really listening to their concerns, talking to the other side and saying, do we need to go to court? Can we sit down and converse with one another? Because nobody really wants that extreme. And if it were so quick to go to the extreme, instead of just taking a deep breath and having that mediator, I love the idea of really that mediator in between that is there to translate for the common folk what needs to be heard in the political arena.
I think journalists and media people like yourselves have a wonderful opportunity to do creative work because the world is crying out for mutual understanding, and the media people, I think, could do that. It's not going to be easy.
No,
I think
because it's not popular right now. And that's the thing. They always want you to go and do what's popular.
Right.
But look at the Me Too movement. Look at the Black Lives Matter. Was that popular? No, it's when it became an outrage. Right. So we don't want to go to the anger, but what we want to do is make open conversation.
Exactly.
No judgment, no shame, no blame.
Exactly. No, that's exactly right. I'm looking forward to seeing more of that. I think it'll come. It'll appear, and it also speaks to the need for a global consciousness. The world is, in fact, an integrated system pretty much now. The electronics are all integrated. They're global systems. The economics are integrated. It's one big network, really, the entire world. It's only the politics that separate us. And if we could see the need for a different mentality, a global mentality that summarizes these just basic principles that all human beings can agree on. For instance, the Dalai Lama, for years, has been pointing out that all of the religions have some basic common principles that they share, and that's what we need to do, to bring out those basic principles and get everybody on board agreeing to those basic principles, because without that, you can't have a governing system. No. Any society, whether it's even a family or an organization or a nation, has to have a governing set of ideals to make it work. And that's what we need at the global level, a common set of beliefs that we can all subscribe to.
I also firmly believe in our own accountability of stop looking for someone else to resolve the problems. Look at how you can participate and be part of that solution. And that means your own, everything comes down to relationships.
Right.
Your relationships with others, your relationship with your view on life, but everybody's seeking an outside in answer where everything is an inside out. And we see so many people, and again, I have another one, the Forgotten Children series, that so often, 98% of the time, an injured adult is an injured child, inner child. And we can't resolve anything from the outside. We've got to go in and heal ourselves. We've got to speak to that child. We've got to let things go that were done to us. It doesn't mean you forget, but you've got to let go of the pain because that pain's crippling you. You've got to let go of the resentment or the fear, and just realize that the only way moving forward is to acknowledge it. It can make you stronger. It can make you more courageous. It can give you more abilities. You can really step into why you went through it in the first place and be that awesome human being that can serve others. But if we're not willing to do that work on ourselves, all we're doing is bringing our dysfunction to the collective.
You sound like a psychiatrist, Sarah. That's wonderful. Very well stated. That's exactly right. We have to start with ourselves. We have to get our own baggage out of the way and find our own humanity, our love for ourselves and for everybody else. That's exactly right. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
You know, let me just introduce another interesting point. The legalization of psychedelic drugs could play a role here. It's remarkable how these things work out. I have used a little marijuana, and it has a remarkable effect.
Yes.
It's a different form of consciousness.
Yes.
With people using this widely now, we may see that contribute to the kind of consciousness that's needed.
We get in our own way and block it, right, with our own intellectual thinking. As you said, knowledge gets in the way. And when you do take something like that can take that knowledge out. Now, I don't mean it dumbs you down. It means that you're not focusing on the wrong things. You start tuning in to that consciousness that lies within you.
It changes your attitude.
Yes.
So you see life from the perspective of higher consciousness, which is, I think, inherently spiritual, really.
Yeah. Yes.
You know, that's another thing we have to change in the world. We should start without apologies, embracing the idea of spirituality.
Thank you.
Not religion, but spirituality.
Yes.
We should recognize that really we are all spiritual beings.
Having a human experience.
Which is what all religions have always said.
Yes.
But we're afraid to admit that in Western society. If we could just do that, what a breakthrough that would be.
I know. I'm a spiritual being, always have been. And the hardest thing I've had is trying to fit into the human world, because it's like, as a spiritual being that comes from the heart and the soul, it's like, I don't want your anger. I don't want your, dysfunction. I don't want your hate rhetoric. It is completely opposite to my essence of who I am. And it really has a very negative effect. And I never see that being productive or creative. And this, you see it on TV shows that anytime the mention of spirituality, suddenly it's a cult.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, oh, please get over yourself. They're more conscious. Call it a different word if you want. That's why the show is Ignite Your Heart and Soul. But I am a spiritually based person, and no apologies for it whatsoever. And I do believe that when we open up our heart, the thing is, our heart is our truth. Our soul is that consciousness that speaks through our heart. If our heart is closed off, we can't hear. When we open up our hearts, even a crack, and we allow that consciousness to come through, it gives such wisdom to us, where the spirit can go into action and it can extract the knowledge from the mind of what's needed in the moment.
Right.
But we want to dictate with our high intellect all the time, and we've cut off all the other aspects of our consciousness that are there to guide us in the first place.
Yeah, in my book, I use the term human spirit to get away from the stigma that's associated with spirituality. I speak of human spirit. Now, that's something that anybody can embrace.
Yes.
It's common sense.
Yeah.
It's the way the consciousness that we that we feel every day that changes through the day, that we cultivate. You wake up in the morning, you drink coffee, it changes the way you feel.
Mhm.
It picks you
Perks
up.
you up.
Yeah, at night you have a glass of wine, it calms you down. We are all cultivating our human spirit constantly just to cope. And so if we could just recognize that human spirit, it's not controversial, really.
No.
And that could change our understanding of science, because science could embrace that kind of spirituality and make it legitimate. Science has been had a very difficult time trying to accept anything that smacks of spirituality. But if you define it in terms of human spirit, it should be legitimate for science. And I think we could see a revolution in scientific thinking in years to come, along with this revolution in consciousness, so that science accepts human spirit as a domain of study with empirical data to
Mm.
back it up. And we could see the connection between human spirit and behavior and social well-being and so forth. So there's a lot of things that are going to change in the decades to come. We're going to be surprised by some of these dramatic changes, I think.
It's happening because I've actually interviewed people like this.
So,
We call it, the quantum spirituality, because,
yes, yes,
quantum physics has opened up a whole understanding of energy.
yes.
And they're realizing that people that are doing Reiki or energy healing or channeling or any of that are actually connected to this higher energy, and they can measure that. So scientists are beginning to understand those people who live in a spiritual realm are living at a higher frequency. They're vibrating at a higher frequency. And they realize that the higher the frequency they go, the calmer the people are, the more conscious they are, and the more energy that they put out. So it is happening that people are seeing this. And there's wonderful devices that have been created to help people ignite that divine energy within them and escalate it. And it's wonderful to see. But scientists are realizing that spirituality is purely a higher energy, a higher consciousness. The fact that they can measure it now is like, okay, it's irrefutable, it's here. But we
Well,
need to see more of it and more mainstream, not just, podcast backrooms. We want to see that being right there on the media. And yes, it will be, like climate change. Oh, climate change, a whole load of cods. Well, we're fine, and no, we're not fine. And I think that the voices are allowed to be told and shared in any which way, constantly out there, then eventually it will catch on. But we got to have a momentum.
it's wonderful to hear you say this. I fully agree with you fully. In fact, you're speaking right out of my book. But we have to be realistic about this.
Mm.
The doubts, the fears are deadly, and they're enormous. They're
Oh,
enormous. So the pain, I think, of the what I call the crisis of maturity is going to increase. The climate change problem is going to get more severe. I think that's almost certain.
mhm.
And so what's going to happen, I think, is the pain is going to increase and put pressure on us to change. And so the question is going to be, how much pain
Mm.
will civilization endure before we get around to accepting reality and changing our thinking? So that's the way it's going to work out, I think. The
Yeah.
pain will get severe, and at some point we will have to make changes.
And education needs to step up. I think,
Yes,
right from the
yes,
home front into the school front. No, your meat and your vegetables do not grow in the grocery store. All right. It comes from the land. Your manufactured meat, not your grazed meat, but your manufactured meat are treated abominably. And you are eating that pain and that terror every time you take a bite. The more awareness that we have out there, the more consciousness we ignite. They may not like what you're telling them and they
yeah.
may resist it, but the seed is planted. The seed is planted, and eventually more and more people start to. I mean, look at veganism. 20 years ago,
I
it
know.
was, just a hippie thing, and now it has become
Yeah.
very mainstream around the world.
Yeah,
Um,
I know a physician who really captures attention when he talks about going to the supermarket, going to the meat section. He calls it going to the mortuary.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That really drives it home.
Mm-hmm.
And
Exactly.
and another good trend is the arrival of meatless meat,
And it's
plant-based,
delicious.
yeah, plant-based
Delicious.
burgers.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I mean, it's. I think there's one entrepreneur who is selling a new form of plant-based hamburgers thinks that eating meat will become socially unacceptaptable
Yeah.
in 10 or 20 years. I think that could be.
I am really hoping so. And, I have a vegan kids, and I'm an 80-20. So like at home, I am vegan. If I'm around vegan, I am. And, that other 20 is wherever I am. It will be chicken or fish, but no other meat. But it becomes that conscious thing. I love meat. I love bacon, but I can't eat it consciously, knowing who's suffering to give that to me, right? And I think if we could start looking not just at our meat, our dairy, and we start looking at other things that we're having and going, who's suffering to produce this to us?
Yeah, that's
And
right.
is it necessary? Do we have to have some entity suffering for our pleasure? And can we ignore this ignorance anymore, or can we let go? And again, as I say, fingers pointing out there, it's everybody else's fault. The three coming back at it is like, you owe it to yourself to start looking at the knowledge. The internet is there. Yes, there's a load of crap on it, but there's also an incredible amount of data and information. And it's be willing to explore, be willing to open up your conscience, not just like, oh, I'm a conscious enlightened being now. Well, if your lifestyle is still the same way, no, you're not. Right? So you can't label yourself that until you've done the work. And it just means everybody's got to do the work. Not everybody wants to, and not everybody's going to. And a lot of people are going to be resistant to it. But I call it the cosmic 2x4. When people have had enough, right? Flattened for the last time. It's like, okay, I guess I've got to do something different.
Yeah. I might mention the fact that the young people really are more prone to understanding this kind of thing.
Yes.
The young generation is a different breed of person.
Thank God.
They've been raised in an information-rich environment.
Yes.
And they intuitively understand this kind of stuff. They don't see the problem with racial differences, sexual differences. They tend to be light in their diets. So I think the younger generation is going to probably going to have to lead in this.
Oh God, yes.
I think.
Yes. I mean, again, it's been very enlightening because, many of the people I interview are 50 plus, right up to 89. And life is an attitude, but it's with a gratitude. And, when you have stepped into that, I'm grateful for what I have, for what the planet gives me, for the people around me, then I need to share that gratitude. And that's when that knowledge starts being shared. So, the young people, many are willing now to listen to their elders for that wisdom, because we've made the journey. We're ahead of the game there. We've lived the old lifestyle and we know it didn't work. We've stepped into a more conscious lifestyle. And so, but that wisdom and that knowledge that we've gained can be passed on. And so I think that, yes, the millennials and the younger, oh God, we need them. We need that consciousness, but it's not too late for us to change.
And we also need women in power.
Yeah.
I don't mean to denigrate men, but men really have been a part of the problem. They tend to have a more assertive, power-oriented way of behavior. And women are different. Not all, of course, but women tend to be different because they give birth to children and they are nurturing by their very nature. And it's interesting, for instance, during the pandemic, there was a wonderful study that compared the 6 nations that did the worst and the 6 nations that did the best. The nations that did the best were led by women.
Yeah.
The nations that did the worst were led by men.
Egos.
It's very telling, very telling.
Yes.
And so I think getting women into power is a very crucial change.
It's the
The life,
balance we need, isn't it? We've
it
had
is.
an inequality and imbalance for so
Yeah,
long now. We need that balance
yeah,
because there's a common sense factor to us. You know, when you are birthing children, raising children, you are on 24/7 and you've got to have a system, you've got to have a plan, but you've also got to be flexible, you've got to be intuitive, you've got to be able to reach out for knowledge. And so you are working on many, many cylinders,
yeah,
but
yeah,
it's always to make sure that everything is fundamentally secure and there is, you know, enough space there for people to grow in. And that kind of practicality at the same time intuitiveness is desperately needed. And unfortunately, um, male dominance became very misogynistic, but it also became incredibly ego-based.
it
And
is.
so it stopped about being of service. It stopped being about who can I make a difference, you know,
That's right.
positively in their lives. It became about me, myself, and I. So a
That's right.
great deal of narcissism out
That's
there.
right. That's right.
And, you know, that we can't change a narcissist until a narcissist wants to change. And most of the time they're in denial because they think there's nothing wrong. So we can't help them, but we can help those who maybe become a victim of them.
Yeah, that's true. At my university, I see the difference in our students.
Mm,
Uh, the there's a preponderance of women now. Women outnumber men in the student body, and the women are as sharp as ever.
yeah,
I think they are as intelligent as the men, but they bring something a little different. They bring
yeah,
that sensibility
yeah.
and that willingness to listen and to cooperate. So I see it in our students.
Yes. Yes, the compassion too that is there. I've, you know, they have said that the time of woman in leadership is here, the
It is.
Aquarian,
It is.
and it most certainly is and needs to be because you know things have got out of hand, and we know if we're running a household, things get out of hand, everything is thrown into turmoil. We also know that out of chaos, you're looking for clarity, and you can't find that if you stay in chaos. So you have to look at ways of managing things to get back to that clarity um, and that stability, because we're all looking for a certain amount of stability, because that's how we grow. And it's with every single one of us at whatever level to step up to this higher consciousness, to step into self-management and self-awareness, self-healing, and to also look at what is our beautiful instrument. How well can I play it? Which orchestra do I join? Right? Because we're collectively meant to be in this all together, but we individually can't bring our woes and problems and angst to the table. We need to bring our healing selves to the table, and then collectively we can resonate that out.
I love the way you talk. It's just marvelous to hear that.
It is happening. It is happening. We've just got to, you know, like shows like this, your books like you've written, you know, it gets it out there. It may be just one drop in the ocean at a time, but the ocean is made up of trillions and God knows 1 trillion million drops, right? So it's like, I think if we stop looking at the end result and start looking at how can I plant seeds right now and water them, and rather like the bamboo shoots, you don't see any growth. Some of them for 5 years, you don't even know it's grown. You just keep watering and nurturing, and then one day, phew, right, like Jack and the Beanstalk, it's
That's
there.
right. That's right.
So
That's right.
don't look for instant results or instant gratification. Just keep seeding, keep watering, keep nurturing, keep growing, and you will suddenly see there is a forest of new trees.
I think that's exactly right. The processes of social evolution are slow, but they grind on relentlessly. And what we're seeing is the fruit of these massive changes. You know, the Me Too movement and the corporation becoming quasi-democratic. All of those things would have been hard to believe just a few years ago.
Mhm.
So the forces of social evolution are in charge, and they're going to continue to surprise us, I think, with new developments. I think this decade is going to be crucial, Sarah.
Yes.
This decade is really
But
crucial.
I don't know about you, but I laugh every time I hear this. Communists. And it's,
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
and it's like, really?
Well,
Socialist,
that's outmoded.
communist.
That's outmoded nonsense. That
I
means nothing.
know. And
If,
it's like communism was founded on a good principle. It just wasn't carried out properly. It
well,
became
yeah.
suppressive rather than inclusive. Um, but it's why is socialism communism, and why is caring for other people, and why is wanting to be a part of a community in unity something bad? Can you explain
Well,
that to me?
well, thinking of political cycles, I think helps because in the United States, it seems to me pretty clear that when Reagan was elected in 1980, that ushered in a different era, a new era in the United States. It was the beginning of the government is bad and free enterprise is good era. And we've been in that for these years now. We've been in there for 40 years. That I think is coming to an end.
Yes.
That is over.
Mm.
The willingness of Biden to spend trillions of dollars, for instance, and the people want it. The country
Yeah.
wants that money. That tells me that that's over. Big government is not bad now. People want government help.
Yes.
And so I think we're going to see some changes in the political landscape because that 40-year reign of Reaganomics is over. I don't mean to disparage Reaganomics. It was at the time it was needed.
Yes.
We needed to free ourselves from government constraints. We needed free markets. We needed entrepreneurship. We needed a lot of change. Now that's been accomplished, and now I think the country needs something else. And what we need now, I think, is a synthesis of left and right. I'm convinced of that. That's a key chapter in my book. I think politicians have to learn how to take the lead by cooperating, by showing how they can benefit both parties, both left and right, and it'd be better for everybody. They would gain, if they do this well, they could gain more power by serving both sides of the aisle.
And it's when you have one so much in power and the others fighting against that power all the time, where is the productivity? Right?
It's terrible. It's terrible.
And so when you have that cohesive collaboration, okay, I've got your back. I hear where you're going. I'm behind you. Maybe next time you get voted in, I'll do the same for you. The yin and yang, the infinity sign. We need the balance. And if everything is too much to one extreme, we're all walking around sideways, right? So
you are a joy to talk to, Sarah. I love it.
I want to talk quickly about some of your other books, because you've written, 7 of them?
7, that's right.
And so what are they about?
Well, one of them is The Infinite Resource, about knowledge. That was written at the height of the knowledge age. And that was a revolution, no question about it. I mean, we have changed the world through the knowledge revolution. And that's how we got here.
Yes. That's how we have this technology and everything else, right?
I mean, my God, having a smartphone is a miracle. It's a miracle.
Yes.
To have this little device where you can acquire all the knowledge throughout the world. It's amazing.
Yes.
And you can speak to people in
Timbuktu.
I mean, it's astonishing. It's a miracle.
Yes.
We don't appreciate it for what it is. And so that's the whole point. We have all the knowledge we need now. Yeah. Knowledge is no longer the problem.
No, it's how we use the knowledge, the wisdom to use the knowledge.
Exactly.
Yeah. So are all of your books are kind of along that theme?
Well, there was another, there are a number of books that are interesting. That was a good one. I like the idea of internal markets, was one of my books, which attempted to solve the problem of hierarchy in organization. We still suffer from that.
I call them the Ivory Towers.
Yes. We celebrate democracy and free enterprise in the West, but that's not the way organizations work. There's no democracy in a typical organization. It's an autocratic hierarchy. And you see changes now. And I think we probably are going to see a new type of organization emerge in which the basic unit is a self-managed team or an internal enterprise of employees who choose to be in that unit. They're responsible for its performance, and they gain based on what they accomplish.
Mm.
and they're free to pretty much do what they like. So we could have, I think, a bottom-up kind
Yeah.
of society
Oh, do we
that
need
would
that? Yeah.
suck up the unemployment
Mm.
numbers and empower people in their work so that they're no longer cogs in a machine. They feel they're running their own small enterprise.
Right.
So that's what that was about, internal markets.
You know, I think that actually one of the great gifts the pandemic gave us is that suddenly those in the ivory tower that we revere that are so far from the root of what their entire business is, all of a sudden you're seeing, you know, the workers, the worker bees on the forefront saving our lives, you know, getting food to
Yes,
our grocery
yes,
stores,
yes,
working in the grocery stores, our nurses, our janitors, you know,
right,
and I say if you walk into a business and it's dirty, your immediate perception of that business changes. So the janitor is extremely important because he
yeah,
set the stage
that's
for
right,
what, right? So we know, I think this hierarchy, as you're calling the ivory towers, which is so delusional because they have no understanding of what's going on the ground floor. And that when we start celebrating the people that are doing the grudge work, and we value them and we let them know that we value them, not only economically, but in support and in collaboration, that we really care. You know, if they're going through hard times, we're there for it. Like we should be with the village. When we're going for happy times, we share that celebration. If we can get back
exactly,
to the village mentality, I think we'll
exactly,
be so much stronger.
exactly. You know, I also wonder about the enormous wealth gap in
Mm,
this country. It's embarrassing. It's
it
just
is.
it's a crime when half of the country struggles to get by on $10 an hour, and then you have people like Bezos and the
Yes.
other billionaires that
Yes.
what's the point? What's the point of all that money? It's hard
What are
to
they
understand.
seeding? What are the possibilities? And yeah, you've gone up into space for
Yeah,
30 seconds, but how about all the people that, you know, are living now on the street because they can't afford the rent because they lost their job during the pandemic, and or the veterans that have come back and been completely ignored and, you know, don't feel safe anywhere. I mean, what about the families that would love to keep a roof over their head and they can't, and then it's a spiral down? What about all the people that we send to jail instead of helping them turn their lives around? I mean, there's so much what money can do to change the systems that are so desperately broken. And, you know, yeah, all right, take a chunk for yourself, go and be extravagant, right? But what are you going to do with the rest of that money? Because now they're a slave to that money.
it's a big ego thing.
Oh,
That's the
huge.
only justification for it, I think.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I could envision a point where again, where it becomes embarrassing to have all of that money. In fact, it's interesting. The children of all of that wealth are rejecting it. Uh,
Mm,
I noticed that. I note that in my book.
yeah.
The children of billionaires are changing their opinion. They're saying, "I don't want all that money. I
Yes.
don't want a world that creates that kind of disparity of wealth."
Right.
So it's so ironic.
Yeah.
The children of those billionaires don't want it.
Mm,
They feel the burden of
yes.
the immorality of it.
Right. Right. And if they
So
had the
it's
chance, they could take a chunk of it and do something with it, right? Yeah.
it's really
Yeah.
surprising. It's
It's
amazing
lovely, isn't it? It's lovely.
how life takes these unexpected turns.
Mm.
Social evolution takes these unexpected turns when you least expect it. You know, we're going to be surprised in the years to come, I think.
I have three millennials, all in their 30s, and each one of them stands for something. You know, their own particular thing that they have chosen to stand for. And it is humanity, and it is planet, and it is the animal kingdom. And, you know, I say to people, yes, it can get overwhelming when you see the pain and the suffering out there, and you go, you know, what can I do? I'm just being pulled under. Is choose one thing.
Yeah.
Choose one thing that's close to your heart that you feel that you can participate, if not in money, in sharing on social media, in supporting and being a spokesperson. There's always something we can do. And I think when we step outside of ourselves and step into some form of service, we live so much more in gratitude.
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely.
And that's
Oh,
where the abundance and the enrichment lies.
Well, I think so much of the crime and
Mm,
self-abusing behavior is a result of people not having worthy purpose in life.
right, right.
I mean,
That's what we're here for, right?
yeah. So,
We're here to discover what is our instrument, how to play it well, and which orchestra to join and create a symphony that resonates out.
yeah, exactly. Well, you and I have it all worked out, Sarah. I
I
mean,
know
it's
people have
too
just
bad
got
we
to
can't.
apply.
Yeah, it's too bad we can't get everybody else to agree with us.
Well, there's a lot of people that do agree. I've
Yeah.
been doing this 9.5 years. I've done over 2,000 shows. And
Uh-huh.
I would say that, 98% of people that agree with us of the higher elevation of our consciousness, and each one of them have gone through their own self challenges that has led
Yes.
them to their meaningful purpose today.
Yes.
And I think the greatest gift you can have is a teacher that's gone through it.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it's exciting to think of the possibilities.
Yeah.
And I don't think this is wishful thinking. I think it's
No,
solid. I think it's going to happen.
I think people are hungry for it.
Yeah.
They're hungry for it. They just say, I'm so tired. Like, through the pandemic, there was the fear of this and that. And then it's like, I mean, get back into hugging again. And then, no, you can't, because there's the non-vaxxers and there's the protesting. And then there's this hate rhetoric and that hate rhetoric. And it's like, we're so tired of it. Where is the love? How many trillions of songs have been sung about love? When are you going to actually start singing along?
We need some kind of a major world event to
The
tip.
pandemic wasn't enough?
No, something more positive to tip the scales in favor of this outlook. When
Yeah,
that happens, the world consciousness could swing very quickly
right.
in this direction, I think.
Yeah, I've Alison Goldwyn, who I've interviewed a few times and did the Let's Get Synced series with. She brought me the people, and we're actually going to be doing a series next year. We're going to be doing it for up until, I think, 2026, where she wants to do a global party around
Ah,
the world at the same time in celebration of humanity, of higher consciousness, and of planet.
I
And I
love
think
it.
if we can all step into that party and start looking at right now, we think, oh God, it's hopeless. No, it's nothing is hopeless. If you still got energy left in your body, if you've still got life left in you, you're not dead yet. Stop walking around like the walking dead, right?
Yeah.
Participate, do something, because when you step into that action, that meaningful purpose will come, and that service and that satisfaction and that enrichment and that abundance will just keep on growing. And so I think we need to see a hell of a lot more of celebration.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I'm with you. I'm with you all the way.
Good.
I hope we found this useful. By the way, if I could ask you to tell your audience to go to
Yes.
www.beyondknowledge.org, where they can find a synopsis of the book.
Right. And
Beyond
also
Knowledge, beyond knowledge.
beyondknowledge.org.
That's right.
And also you're on Facebook and you're on Twitter,
Right.
and people can find your books on Amazon. If they just
Yes.
put in your
Yep.
name on Amazon, will all of your list of books come up?
Yes, they're all there.
Good, wonderful, because I encourage people to go back and read some of the other books. What a
Great.
wonderful book club idea you can have of going through each book, then talking about how much we've actually changed, how much work still needs to be done, get the conversation going, because a lot of the time people just don't, but I don't know what to do. Well, here you've given, some ideas, you've ignited in
Yes.
your books
Yes. Yes.
thoughts of what we can do. And when you don't just read it yourself and go, oh, but you start doing it with a collaborative of people and go, right, this is doable. How
Yes.
about we change this approach? How we just do it in our book club and ricochet it off into our families, that then starts domino affecting everything out. We know how fear can spread so very quickly. How about we spread solutions and love?
Wonderful. Wonderful. You're right on target, kid.
It's all possible,
It is.
right?
It's
It
coming.
is.
It's not only possible, it's coming.
And it's happening.
It is happening.
We just don't see it in the mainstream, but it is happening. And
It's
you
just
can be a part of it, folks. You can be a part of it.
It's just the early phases of this process. That's all.
Right. We're still at the shaking up to wake up. That a lot of people have woken up and they realize they have to change it up, and they've started up on that change. There's still a lot of people who don't know how to wake up, and we One thing I realized as a spiritual counselor a long time ago, you can't save everybody, and you certainly can't save people who don't want to be saved.
Yep.
So you have to concentrate on the people who are at that crossroads and say, I need a new direction. Help me, guide me along the way. And those are the people, because they will tilt the scales, right? And if the others haven't been willing to get on the bridge, then they'll be left behind. But at some point they'll wake up and go, this isn't working for me and I need to cross that bridge. But let's raise that consciousness, let's support that consciousness, and let's get people into action. I call it actionism.
I have one last good point to tell you that will be encouraging. I came across an article by Henry Kissinger, and Henry Kissinger now understands that we're entering an age of consciousness.
Yes.
Henry Kissinger.
Yes. Yes.
He just doesn't know what it is, but he's convinced that it's happening.
Oh, it's
is
happening.
Remarkable.
I know it's happening. I can feel it happening. As an intuitive, I know it's happening. But we're in that stage with the Celtic rune Haglas, disruption. We have to have disruption, like you have to have house cleaning before your house is tidy.
Yes, exactly.
You know, it's the internal and the external house cleaning needs to go on, because the peace we seek is within us. The love we seek is within us. The solution the world needs is within us. So let's concentrate on us, and then we can bring the best of us forward.
Sarah, you are a spiritual teacher, no question about it. It's been great to be on your show. Thank you so much.
Wonderful having you here, and delighted. And people, please go and get the books, get the conversation going. Please share this show. We need to ignite that consciousness, and it starts with conversing about it. Start the conversation. Don't be afraid of it, please. Thank you so much for being here, William.
Thank you, Sarah. Bye-bye.
Until next time, folks. Bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. You will hear many shows here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. We have new shows for you out every week. Just find them on our podcast or What's New. If you feel that you have something to share that makes a difference in the lives of others, or you too feel that you could be a host, please contact me at info@selfdiscoverymedia.com, and we will be glad to speak with you. Have a wonderful day.